Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking time out on Saturday to attend this talk. When I was preparing my slides, my staff told me, "Oh my God, you're so boring." So I tend to filter off after a while. So if I'm getting too monotone or you can't hear me, feel free to yawn loudly and I will take that signal, okay? Okay, today I'm here to share with you our research or views on Myanmar. You all would have noted that Myanmar has been in the forefront of many news wires over the past 6 months or even more. Okay, so what we are covering today are some why people are so optimistic over Myanmar, why their economic growth is expected to be amongst the highest in the developing countries. Second, give you a sense of what's going on in the political reforms in Myanmar. What are some of the opportunities in the real estate market? And of course, in an emerging market like this, there's a lot of risks that you need to take note of. And last, how to mitigate these risks. Okay, just to share with you, I actually just came back from Myanmar on Thursday. Okay, photographic proof. Okay, and why OrangeTee is able to speak to you is that we are actually have been doing research on the market over the past 6 months, a very in-depth study helping a developer build up their real estate operations. Okay, we are also doing an exhibition at the end of this month. So, well, it's just a disclaimer of some sort. We only have 6 months of knowledge, but it's probably better than what you can get in a lot of other places. Okay, why people are very optimistic with Myanmar? Okay, first, prime reason is that if you study the geography of Myanmar, it is in a very strategic location. It shares borders with 5 countries, including 2 of the largest economies in the world, being China and India. And as at today, India, China, and Thailand accounts for 72% of Myanmar's exports. And thirdly, because of this, Myanmar has the potential to be a key link between China and India trade. And also, if you study the geography, okay, Myanmar offers Thailand a route out of the country via the Andaman Sea instead of looping goods around the Straits of Malacca. For those who do shipping, you'll know the value of this. Okay, I'll touch on this a bit later on. Secondly, the country has a lot of natural resources. They have oil, gas, minerals, gems, timber. They have land that are very ripe for agriculture and fisheries. They are also the largest exporter of teak wood in the world. And for the ladies, okay, this country accounts for 90% of global jade and ruby trade. Of course, you go there, there's a chance you'll buy glass instead of ruby, so you need to take note of where you buy them from. Okay, and third key reason why economies are very positive on the country is that, firstly, the country has a very big population. It's the 5th largest population in Asia, just behind Thailand. And the population is relatively young in Asian context, average medium age of about 28 years old. And more importantly is that the cost of labor is still much lower than what you see in other countries in Asia. Just take Vietnam as a reference. The median monthly wages is about 45% lower than that of Vietnam as at today. Okay, so monthly wage now is about $68 per month, which makes it a very compelling destination for more mass-produced manufacturers. Okay, next few slides, I'll show you how Myanmar looks like. Okay, this is the focal point of Yangon city center. This is a Sri Dagon Pagoda. It's entirely made of gold. Okay, so I think every 3 or 5 years, they got to spend 30 tons of gold to replate the pagoda that you see. And for people I brought there, especially the ladies, they are very intrigued about the 70-carat diamond that is on top of the tower. Okay, a lot of my people I brought there spend many hours trying to catch a glimpse of the diamond, but I haven't managed to see it yet. Okay, and conditions on the ground. Okay, the top left-hand picture shows you the typical apartments in Yangon. Okay, anomaly there is that in Singapore, as your apartments get higher, right, the prices is higher. But in Yangon, as at today, the lower floors command a better price. Why? Because you see this apartment on your top left-hand corner, they do not have a lift. Okay, so those who stay on the 8th floor of this apartment, well, they are very healthy. Okay, but you move beyond the city center, you'll see still slums like what you see in the bottom left corner. These are actually quite prevalent outside the city center. If you travel out, it's not that far. I mean, without traffic jam, about 20 minutes you'll reach areas like this. And then on the top right-hand corner, this is their typical bus. Okay, the person waving at me is a bus conductor. So, in fact, this is one of the better buses already. Okay, some of it is like a pickup truck with people hanging all over the rails behind. And at the bottom right-hand corner are the farmlands that you can find not too far away from the city. You travel about 30 minutes, you can get to farmlands. So, in short, the city is very small. So with the pending economic growth, it does have a significant room for prices to grow because of the limited geography of the current city center. But it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, before I stepped into Myanmar, I had impression like this, right? Which kind of true, but if you move into the city center, in fact, it's very modern. It's actually a lot like, the airport feels a lot like Penang. Okay, the town area feels a lot like Malacca in some ways. So it's not that backwards. Say for example, that top left-hand picture is their airport. They have a shopping mall that is quite nice. On the top right-hand corner is called Junction Square. This is currently the largest shopping mall in Yangon. Okay, they don't have the Gucci's and whatever, but the facilities are pretty nice. Okay, and if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, this is an example of a landed housing that is completed. Okay, again, it's quite similar to what you can see in Malaysia. It's not by any means shabby or anything. And then at the bottom, it's a showcase of where the country is heading. They are hosting the ASEAN Summit in 2014. Myanmar is supposed to take over the chairmanship also. So they are building a very big project in their capital called Naypyidaw. And this is a picture of the exhibition hall that will be used for the summit. Okay, and businesses has responded. Okay, if you look at the news, if you have followed the news, demand for business and leisure travel is increasing very rapidly. Every flight that I go on to is like a gathering of real estate professionals. Okay, on the plane, you meet so many competitors, so many developers. There's no secret who is going in there. But the fact is that more and more airlines are starting their flights there. SQ is starting to fly on the 28th of this month. Good, then I can take SQ. Okay, other airlines that are starting operations later this year will be EVA and Cathay Pacific. So the implication is quite tremendous because right now there's limited flights. So a lot of people are routing through Singapore or KL or Bangkok. But increasingly there'll be direct flights. So as a businessman, you know what all this means for you in terms of opportunities. And brand names has also started to explore setting up operations in Myanmar. For example, Toyota is starting its parts manufacturing arm in Yangon. Visa has announced that it was going to enter the market. And then, more importantly for the Western press or the Western countries, that last month, the government has announced the abolishment of media censorship. Okay, this is quite important because I think it allows transparency of information flow, which would enhance investor confidence. Okay, because right now you read their official newspaper called News Light of Myanmar, it's quite boring. It's only like 6 pages and you probably can finish in 6 minutes, right? So what is going on that makes people so excited? For those who have not followed, I think the biggest things that have changed by the present government is that they have freed a lot of political prisoners, including the iconic Aung San Suu Kyi, and they have allowed the opposition party to get into the parliament, which has triggered off positive reaction in the Western countries. US and the European Union has eased sanctions that has been imposed on Myanmar gradually since the beginning of this year. And just on 27 September, US has lifted its ban on goods manufactured from Myanmar. This is actually very good news because it means that more manufacturers will be willing to place themselves in Yangon or Myanmar, which would trigger on a follow-on effect on demand for industrial, office, and residential apartments. Okay, and the government has also been actively trying to address some of the issues that are prohibiting investment inflow, one of which is the currency. Okay, it used to be not really tradable. In fact, the locals told me as early as 3 years ago, if you carry around US dollar on the street and you're caught by the police, it's a criminal offense. Okay, but these are all changing. Right now, we can bring in all your thousands of dollars to buy the ruby and diamond. Shouldn't be a problem. Okay, and going ahead, the government is introducing a managed float, which would make the currency exchangeable, tradable, and then this will be followed by the stock exchange that will be set up by 2014. Okay, all these are very important for real estate market because if you study real estate market across cities, you know that finance sector is usually the leader in driving growth in demand for real estate, be it office, residential, or retail. Okay, so beyond just changing their regime politically and firming up their financial system, the Myanmar government has also been very active in trying to build links with neighboring countries. The first of which is this Dawei SEZ, Special Economic Zone. It's being developed by an Italian-Thai consortium. Okay, this Dawei port, if you can see on the map, is on the bottom. Okay, this is expected to link Bangkok to the Andaman Sea, which means that goods that are manufactured in Bangkok need not go around the Straits of Malacca. They can go via road or eventually rail link to this Dawei port, and straight away you can ship it out to the Western countries okay, which saves a lot of time in terms of shipping and cost. Okay. Similarly, the country is also building up oil pipelines to ease the energy demand in southern part of China. Okay, they are allowing China, selling oil to China, and also through this pipeline, it reduces traveling time and cost of all these energy resources. And thirdly, this is another port built by the Japanese. It's called Tilawai. Okay, this is actually more advanced than the other two because the Japanese has been very, very active in trying to help Myanmar to build up its infrastructure. Okay, this is just a sample of the news that came out from Xinhua Agency. So in effect, most of the big Japanese corporates are looking to Myanmar to help them drive the next wave of growth. Okay, so the country has also been cognizant of the need to make the country more investment friendly. They have attempted to revise their key legislation that regulates foreign inflows, being the foreign investment law. Okay, this law as it is today is quite old, so they have been trying to remake this law to make it easier for foreigners to invest in Myanmar. And it's not always easier, but at least you'll set out clearer requirements for people looking to invest into Myanmar. Okay, and one key provisions in the law that is being revised is how to ease restriction on private land use, particularly allowing foreigners to take on land use rights for longer periods. Currently, foreign companies who are approved to operate in Myanmar can only take land lease use of up to 30 years, plus an option for 15 and 15. And the options doesn't rest on you, it rests on the government. So the option is actually quite useless. Okay, but going ahead, they are trying to address investor concern because securing your land rights is very important for any prudent manufacturer before they can invest money to build factories or any building. Okay, so this is still work in progress. Various revisions have been submitted to the government. So nothing has been approved yet. So y'all don't be taken in by any people who tell you that it's definitely going to happen. Okay, it's still work in progress. So wait for official announcement. Don't react on rumors. Okay. So on the right-hand side, some of the reforms that I've already spoken about is that there's a provision to allow 100% foreign ownership in enterprises, except for some energy-related sectors. But in a market like this, it's actually quite suicidal to try to do everything yourself. Okay, for those who do business, you know what I mean, right? And also joint ventures are now allowed. And thirdly, they are working on various forms of tax exemptions for companies, be it corporate tax or tax on capital goods and raw materials. Okay, right, as at today, before any revision of this law, if you want to bring in machineries and so forth, it needs to be approved by the government. It's not you happy can bring in any machine that you want. Okay. So based on these macroeconomic factors, what does it mean for their real estate market? I think as an analyst, okay, the three very important things to know about the market is as follows. Firstly, the real estate is not leveraged, meaning people buy in cash. Okay, so if you visit Show Flat or any of the developers' offices, you can see people pushing trolleys of plastic bag. If within those plastic bags are money. Okay, and the funny thing is their currency now is in very small denominations. The largest denomination is 10,000 kyat. Okay, kyat is their local currency. So you can imagine somebody trying to make a 10% deposit for a 1 million kyat property. Well, you probably stack until this high. All right. Okay, jokes aside, in a market like this, the risk of downside is less because people are not leveraged. They have paid for the property. So as long as they are not under stress to resell, the market wouldn't experience a sharp correction. And the upside is that in a market like this, if people are able to start to take loan, you know what it means. You see what happened in Singapore, right? So the potential for upside is there, but the dangers are also there. I'll cover this later on. Okay, second big point is that tight supply in the market across all sectors, because essentially the country stopped building anything new over the past 10 years because there's no activities. Why do they want to build new buildings, right? So it resulted in very low vacancy rates in the top quality hotels, offices, service apartments, and retail. In fact, hotels are so difficult to get that probably if you want to travel up there and you want to stay in a decent 4-star equivalent in Singapore, you should book way ahead of time. Okay. Okay, next I'll cover where we think the opportunities are or some of the drivers of growth for each segment. If you look at the retail market, okay, no doubt with the inflow of FDI and economic growth, you'll see an emergence of middle class, which is the fundamental building block for driving retail consumption and thus retail rent. Okay. And secondly, like I highlighted, there's a lot of people like me flying in and out of the country. We are buying all sorts of souvenirs and so forth. So this influx of expatriates who are looking to set up businesses will be the other key driver of retail consumption. And third will be the tourists. Okay, the tourists are not arriving in very big numbers yet, but it's growing very rapidly, like the chart you see on the left. Okay, the country is actually very, very historical. For people who like historical areas, it's a fabulous place to visit. They have this city called Bagan. If you like temples, if you after visiting Bagan, you might want to reconsider because there's 2,000 over temples in that area. So essentially, you'll go around 2 days looking at temple. I haven't tried that, but I don't think I want to see a 2,000 temple at one time. Okay. Third driver, as a retail space owner, you'll note that if you walk the ground, a lot of the international brands are not in the scene yet. You don't see McDonald's, you don't see Starbucks, right? But if you know how McDonald's and Starbucks choose their location, you can actually secure assets in those locations, and when the time comes, you can brand it or sell to these companies. Okay? And where's the upside? Okay, the potential is enormous because right now the rent is about $2 per square feet per month for retail space. You compare what is going on in Malaysia, Singapore, there's a huge room for retail rent to move. In the residential sector, again, the dual forces of urbanization and immigration would lead to higher demand for housing. Similarly, as economic growth, the purchasing power of the locals and the middle class would be the key driver for growth. Thirdly, is the ability to leverage. currently, there's no loan like what we have in Singapore. We can take 20 years loan to buy properties. Selectively, some locals are able to take 3 years loan, more like a higher purchase terms. Interest rates is currently about 14%. Okay, but going forward, the bank's reforms are coming, so it could turn out to be a situation where you can take loans on property in the coming months. Okay, and there's a shortage of quality condos with comprehensive facilities. And in the hotel and service apartment sector, if you look at the rates, okay, Grand Myanmar is right at the heart of Yangon. A one-bedroom apartments cost you about $3,500 to rent, and you'll be on 6 months waiting list at least. Okay, you compare that against current rental in Singapore, it's actually quite expensive. Even the room rates for hotel, you look at the table below. Okay, Park Royal, which is one of the most popular business hotel, is asking for Singapore 240 at least. Okay, you compare that with Singapore. And for office, okay, there's only one Grade A building to speak of, which is Sakura Tower. Rental is at $880 per square feet. You recall what Nicholas Mark shows you. Well, it's quite comparable to what is in Singapore. Okay, so going ahead, it might get you excited, you might be excited by yourself, but there's a lot of risks that could you need to be aware of to moderate your expectation of returns. Firstly, the pace of legal and financial reform might not be as fast as what you see in developed countries, because they are trying to learn from what happens in Vietnam, Bangkok, and so forth, and try to implement policies that are more sustainable. And secondly, there are also struggles typically between those who don't want reform and those who want reform. Okay? Okay. Second is that the financial market, while I said is being developed, it might take some time. And thirdly, the infrastructure remains very weak. Power, water, transport, sewage are all very sparse. Okay, if you stay in a hotel, the good ones, you might not experience it, but you stay in a not so good one, halfway through your meetings or your dinner, you might get a blackout. Okay. And fourth point, which is very important for any foreign investor, is that there's a low level of transparency in terms of transactions information. Okay, basically in the market currently, you're acting more on hearsay. Okay, there's no nice chart that I can draw like what the other speakers have done, because there's no data compiled at the moment, but we are trying to do that. And lastly is that there's an absence of strata title law at the moment. Okay, what this means is that even if you want to buy an apartment, okay, at the moment foreigners are not allowed to buy, but even if you buy, you're not given a title to the space, not like Singapore. Okay, what you get is essentially a right to use the space in the building. So if the building burns down, right, you get nothing. Okay, so until the strata title law, which they are trying to implement, is in place, this is a very important risk for you to take note. Okay, and last part I'm sharing with you is how to mitigate your risk. Okay, firstly, like I highlighted, the foreign investment law and the strata title ownership law are expected to be passed sometime this year or next or the year after next. Okay, point is don't act on rumor. Okay, wait for official announcements. Secondly, you will need to buy from developers with established track record. How you know their track record? You definitely got to talk to a Myanmar person. Okay, whether they know of the developer before you buy. And third, avoid contracts that are not in line with the spirit of the law. Okay, well, in any developed market where there's restriction, there will be projects that come by that will tell you, oh, you can buy using a local's name and then you sign a contract and so forth, right? But this is in spirit against what the general law allows. So you might want to seek legal advice before you enter into any contract like this. And fourth, the quality of after-sales service is actually very important. Okay, this is not just about them helping you take over the units. Why after-sales is important is because if you do want to resell your apartments or property, you will need to go through the developer. So if they are not in the practice of serving you properly, it might take you very long to sell your property. Okay, and last, well, learn more about the market. We are giving another talk on the 20th October, 3 p.m. Of course, you don't just hear from me, you should listen to all the other people who will be increasingly speaking about Myanmar. Learn about the market. It's a very not transparent market, so it pays to do your homework way before you put your money in it. Okay. So going forward, I think we are very excited. OrangeTee is very excited. We are setting our operations there. So why we are excited is for these 5 reasons. The reforms look to us irreversible. We are able to identify niche opportunities for people going in. But we need to be aware of the challenges, particularly in the legal and regulatory environment. We need to do our homework still. And lastly, as in any emerging market, go in with your eyes open. Okay? Well, for what it's worth, this person, I don't know who he is. Right? No, George Soros is one of the biggest currency trader in the world. So he has given the endorsement of this country. So, well, that's all I have. Again, this comes from my legal department also. Okay, thank you. I hope you have found this useful.